Hey y'all, welcome to Scareticulous. Daredevil Born Again is a mostly faithful reboot of the Netflix classic show, with a few notable caveats. The thing with Disney is, it's a bit like making a business deal. You get something out of it, but not without losing a few things in the process. I suppose it's inevitable. But if this is the price to get Daredevil back in the MCU, then so be it. I'm going to be reviewing episodes 1 and 2, since that's how Disney Plus premiered this new show. The first few minutes of episode 1, a very spoilerish thing happens that's very tragic for Matt Murdock, and you can probably guess what it is. There's a scene where the aspect ratio changes when Matt does his super hearing, and I thought that was pretty neat. It's nice to know there's still some creativity here in this show and that strange little things like that can happen at any time. A fight scene takes place between Daredevil and a mysterious sniper who is revealed to be Bullseye from the comics. This sniper does the unthinkable because Foggy Nelson, Matt's fellow practice partner and best friend, does something that he ends up paying for with his life. Yes, it's a bit unavoidable to really get into this new show without spoilers because it's literally in the first 10 minutes of the episode. Bullseye straight up assassinates Foggy. Matt ends up losing his cool and essentially goes into grief mode, dispatching Bullseye, and after this he puts away his Daredevil suit for the foreseeable future. With Foggy gone, Karen has also felt the need to move to San Francisco as their former friendships are now destroyed. A pretty sad ending to our beginning, and honestly I don't really care for this change as it feels like Disney wanted a changing of the guard sort of thing, and only wanted to keep Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio in this new reboot as necessary evils to keeping the story going from the Netflix original. They wanted to basically port over fans of the original show, but also do their own thing with the story now that they have full control. Typical Disney thing to do, but what are you gonna do? After all this shakes out, Matt Murdock continues his fight for justice as a lawyer. They end up putting Poindexter, aka Bullseye, in jail for consecutive life sentences, which really doesn't seem to sit right with Matt, as to him justice hasn't really been served. Meanwhile, Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin of Hell's Kitchen infamy, is running for mayor, and seemingly within minutes he wins the election. There's a lot of emphasis on him being a thug and a criminal, and a lot of allusions to relevant current discussions today about Donald Trump. You can even hear this in certain little blurbs that are said from time to time that are kind of just spliced into the narrative, completely undiegetic from whatever's going on.
What are you gonna do, move to Boston? You hate the subway.
You hearing this guy?
Hear him? I fucking love him!
Politics aside, it's a unique angle that moves things into more of a political space than a strictly criminal-oriented one. Seeing how Wilson Fisk is going to navigate these political spaces while also trying to stay within the confines of the law, while exercising his newfound power, will definitely be interesting to see play out. Matt also has an interesting meeting with Wilson Fisk in a diner, for reasons. I'm honestly stumped beyond comedic effect why this happened, but it felt to me more like a refamiliarization of the dynamics between these two characters to new viewers of the show that wouldn't feel alienating or get lost in translation from the Netflix original. To a new viewer, this interaction might feel like the two were old buddies or rivals, and not that they literally tried to beat each other to a bloody pulp at one point. That said, it does serve a story purpose in letting us know Wilson Fisk will be punishing any further vigilantism with all his political power possible. Now on to episode 2. A vigilante named Hector Ayala saves a man from getting beat up at a train station, and a cop gets killed in the process. He gets arrested and booked by these undercover cops, and shortly after this, Matt Murdock goes to represent him in court. Little does he know, a secret he's hiding will hit closer to home than he realizes. Yes, he's also a Caped Crusader who starts taking over where Daredevil left off. They also seem to squeeze in Matt going on a cute little date with a therapist named Heather Glenn in this storyline, shortly after Foggy's death, who also is coincidentally helping Wilson Fisk sort out his marriage with Vanessa. Small world, I guess. I'm not sure why Matt is dating right now, as it feels like he's still grieving, but I guess we need a cute little love story in our cute little Disney show. Yay! Thankfully, this reboot seems to ignore the whole She-Hulk love interest storyline from that show, which I have zero problem with. Not only was that cringy, but it was a complete slap in the face for the OG fans of the show, and, well, you get the idea. At some point, Matt figures out that some dirty cops are planning to take out his key witness in his new client's case, so he does his super sensory hearing thing and saves his witness from certain death, and then gets the shit kicked out of him for it. At first, Matt lets this charade go on, and at first you're worried he might not make it through this fight without his Daredevil facade, but he quickly teaches these crooked cops not to mess with disabled people. It's one of the more badass disabled person fights I've seen in recent memory, if I'm being honest. We can also see that one of these cops has a Punisher logo on his wrist, so I guess we'll see more about that when Frank Castle comes back into the fray. My guess is these cops feel inspired by Frank's actions, which will be met with some pushback later on. It's actually way more visceral seeing Matt fight in his normal suit and cane as opposed to his Daredevil costume, because they can't cheat with CGI here. It's all painful, brutal, and bloody, just the way God intended. And that's where episode 2 ends. Overall, I liked episode 2 more as it felt more like classic Daredevil. I thought this was a decent return to form for the Daredevil series, if not a little bit marred by the new production issues. I was pretty excited to see this series return, as the Netflix series was one of the best Marvel shows ever created, if not the best. The original series was actually also produced by Drew Goddard and Marvel Television in association with ABC Studios originally, which I don't think many people knew. ABC is also owned by Disney, so you would think the transition over to Disney Plus would be a smooth one, but a lot seems to have changed in this transition to this new show. Let's talk about the look of this new show compared to the original. The cinematography seems way more clean this time with the use of panoramic lenses, and there seems to be way more shots in the daytime. The camera is more locked down as well. The lighting is also way less moody now and doesn't have that same crisp and sharp intensity of the Netflix original. Essentially, the look of the show feels a bit bland now to fit in with the greater MCU scheme of projects. Seems like a corporate decision that I'm a tad miffed about, as it seems to make the show seem a little bit more generic now. But there's still cursing, there's still blood, and the fight scenes are still just as brutal for the most part. So I'm happy about that. The first fight scene we see in the very first episode feels like it's cluttered with so much CGI and smoke effects that it's hard to even really get a good feel on the action being displayed. The cramped fight scenes from the original are back, except now there's a ton of CGI effects splashing the screen and distracting from the visceral nature of the fight. The camera is also locked down and following this intended course, which, if you've watched any of the interviews with the director, there's a good reason for why this is.
Because what we've noticed that the most popular kind of oneer is, you put a camera on the person's shoulder and you just chase them around, which is exciting to all filmmakers basically. And so we decided to kind of nail our camera down and tell our camera that it already knows how this goes. It knows that Foggy dies. It knows that he crosses a line and tries to kill someone on a roof,
That said, I just don't feel like it makes for a very dynamic fight scene. Knowing where the camera is going as an audience member just feels boring, like we're put into a state of safety about something that, by nature, should be very chaotic and unsure. I understand what they were going for, but I think there's probably a better way they could have gone about it. That all being said, besides some obvious differences in visual style from the original, the tone and the focus of the original show seem to be very much intact in this reboot. And while some of the story details might piss some fans off, I think this show is headed in a decent direction. We'll see how things progress, and I'll give you my thoughts when the next episode comes out. Thanks for watching, and please leave me a thumbs up. Did you guys like the first 2 episodes of this reboot? Let me know in the comments below. See you all next time in the next video.